Hello everybody. Um, Welcome to another Matt Black PC videos. Today I want to be talking about speed and capacity in a computer. So in the next couple minutes I want to talk about computer speeds such as gigahertz, how fast things process, talk about capacities such as file sizes, storage units, capacity, and then I'm also going to be talking about difference between memory and storage. Stay tuned. So the first thing I want to talk about is storage units. Now, storage units come with different capacities of storage, and mostly your storage units are measured in a byte, such as a megabyte, a gigabyte, kilobyte, terabyte, like that. Um, so mostly your units are usually measured in bytes. So first you have like what they call like a 1024 kilobytes, which is the same thing as 1 megabyte. And then 1024 megabytes is called a gigabyte. And then it goes into terabyte, and then petabytes, and then yottabytes, I think is how you say it. And the first thing is that when we talk about like files and stuff, files are also measured in bytes. So like your music and your photos are usually going to be stored in megabytes. Then if you're making videos, you will probably be storing in gigabytes. And then text files like your Microsoft documents, or if you're writing on WordPad or Notepad, it's usually going to be stored in kilobytes. So that's the basics of different storage capacities. Also, I forgot to mention things about storage. So you have two types of storage. You got storage and you got memory. Okay. Now, storage is persistent or non-volatile memory, which means it can actually store things and be saved to the device without electricity. So, in other words, when you power off a computer and there's no more electricity, whatever you put in that storage will still be there when you turn the computer back on. Now, memory, on the other hand, is like RAM. It stores memory, and it is considered non-persistent or volatile memory, which means the data is erased when the computer is turned off. So when there's no more electricity going through the computer, that memory gets deleted out of RAM. Now let's talk about throughput. So throughput pretty much measure how much data passes through something in a matter of time. So this is like your network, how much data passes through or communicates between your computer and your router. Um, so throughput is usually measured in bits per second in computers, or most of your throughputs are measured in bits per second, such as kilobits, megabits, gigabits, um, terabits, things like that. So, and then you have what they call bandwidth. Now, bandwidth is the data, like how much data is moving through a certain period of time. So, let's say if you have 50 megabits per second, the bandwidth would be 50 megabits. 50 megabits per second would be throughput. And I used to get these confused difference between throughput versus bandwidth, but just always remember that throughput is how much data involves time. So throughput is time, bandwidth is data, how much data is passed through. So your throughput is time, your bandwidth is data. So let's do another one. Let's say you're doing 10 megabits per second. 10 megabits per second is your throughput. 10 megabits is the bandwidth. So the bandwidth would be 30 megabits, and your throughput would be 30 megabits per second. So throughput deals with time, or the amount of data passing through something in a certain amount of time, and then bandwidth is the actual how much data is going through. So that's your mainly throughput. Now you do have times where your throughput is going to be a little bit slower than what is advertised. So let's say you get 10 megabits per second of network bandwidth network data, but it might actually be slower because the length of the cable, type of cable you use, the network devices you use, and things like that. So things can actually slow down your bandwidth and your throughputs. So you're probably not going to get exactly what is advertised, but that's your basic throughput units of computers. Now let's talk about the hertz. Okay, hertz is usually what is measured when you're measuring how fast your processor works. So a hertz is a unit that is based on speeds or based on a cycle per second. So cycles per second. So let's say you have a 3.4 gigahertz processor. That means it's doing 3,400,000,000 cycles per second, and it's measured in gigahertz. Um, Gigahertz are also measured in what they call a square wave, where it looks like a half a square, so it's like up, right, down, right, and that's one cycle. So imagine going up, right, down, right, 3.4 billion times per second. That's how many cycles that CPU can encounter. So if you're doing 3.4 gigahertz per second, that is 3,400,000,000 times per second, or that's how fast your CPU is calculating per per second. So it's doing that many cycles per second is basically what that means. That's the clock speed, and that's pretty much what hertz is actually, or what hertz actually means. So thank you for watching this short video. Um, Stay tuned. If you like what I am doing, please subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment down at the bottom. And I'll see you in the next one.